Jonathan Isaby, editor at Brexit Central, joins us now. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning, Paul.
So the bill's got to be debated by both houses and then receive royal assent to meet that deadline of the 31st of March. From the debates yesterday, do you think it's going to make it?
I think it will, because there is a clear sense from the overwhelming majority of MPs that the referendum last year, in which more people voted for us to leave the European Union than have ever voted for anyone or anything in British political history, was the British people giving instructions to Parliament as to what needed to be done. And of course, the Labour Party official line is to back the triggering of Article 50. So Sir Keir Starmer, the shadow Brexit secretary, in the dispatch box yesterday saying that Labour supported the triggering of Article 50, even though Sir Keir Starmer himself was a big supporter of Remain. Obviously, there are going to be some Labour rebels who are not going to vote for it tonight. It was quite sad, actually, listening to some of the speeches in the debate yesterday. I mean, David Lammy, for instance, he said, no, the people haven't spoken. Well, I'm afraid they have. And I know David Lammy didn't like what the answer was, but the people did indeed speak.
And he's also in a better position than many of his colleagues on the Labour benches because, of course, in London and in a couple of other urban centres, but in London the vote was very much Remain, but in other Labour strongholds around the country the vote went for Leave. And if MPs stand against their constituents' wishes, they may be in trouble come the next election.
Look, I think that is slightly over-egged. Clearly some people are using that as a reason in order to vote against their party line, possibly. But at the end of the day, it was a UK-wide referendum. It is the UK which is a member of the EU. It's not Tottenham or London or Scotland. It is the whole of the UK. And we went into the European community as the whole of the UK, and we will come out of it as the whole of the UK. So tonight there'll be a vote at about 7 o'clock where we expect the SNP obviously to vote against it. Most of the Lib Dems will, and some Labour rebels, but it will go through overwhelmingly. Next week there will be more stages in the House of Commons, committee stage, report stage, third reading, and then after it's got through that stage in the House of Commons, it goes to the House of Lords, where obviously there's speculation that there's a pretty strong Remain majority in the House of Lords, but again, I don't think the House of Lords is going to vote down effectively what was the very clearly stated will of the British people.
And I would imagine if they were to vote against the bill, then again people might once again question the necessity or the makeup of the House of Lords, because it's this. I voted Remain, but this was a democratic victory for the Leave campaigners, and that's got to be enacted.
You hit the nail on the head, Paul. The British people spoke in greater numbers than have ever done before at any election or referendum. And if the unelected House of Lords, the few hundred privileged few in the House of Lords were to say, actually, we know better, and we're going to say no, I think that, well, there would be a kind of constitutional crisis, but effectively, I think it will be the House of Lords signing its own death warrant. The House of Lords is not a big issue. I doubt many politicians on the doorstep get people having issues about its legitimacy and so on. But on an issue like this, if they were to challenge the stated will of the people, I think it would very quickly become an issue. And I think Theresa May would probably think it was something that she'd have to deal with, and it wouldn't end happily for the current members of the House of Lords.
Now, Michael Gove was in fine rhetorical and comedic form yesterday, I thought, when he spoke from the back benches. I mean, what's your instinct about when he might return to frontline politics, when he might, if ever, be back in the cabinet under Theresa May?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's always difficult when you've been at the very top table for a number of years and then you depart. Particularly when there's a lot of other people snapping at your heels who are slightly younger and have got more of a career ahead of them, if you like. But you're absolutely right. Michael Gove was on fine form yesterday. He's now the deputy chairman of the Brexit Select Committee, working with Hilary Benn, which is obviously a pretty important committee for the next couple of years.
And might have been a fairly awkward encounter at first, given what Hilary Benn wanted to happen on the June referendum.
Well, I mean, these committees are always cross-party affairs, and you have to work on a relatively consensual basis, although that may be harder on that committee than most, it has to be said. But Michael Gove, he's obviously still doing a lot of writing. He's involved in Change Britain, which is one of the organisations which is still pursuing the Brexit agenda from outside Parliament. So, whether he will necessarily be reinstalled in the cabinet anytime soon, I don't know. But he's certainly an enjoyable orator from the backbenches. Indeed, there are a lot of very good speeches yesterday. John Redwood was on very animated form. There are a couple of Conservative MPs who were vying, I think, to make the shortest speech in the debate. Julian Lewis, the Tory MP who chairs the Defence Select Committee, made a speech of 17 words, kind of in late afternoon.
That's about 5 seconds.
Yeah, no, but then that record was broken. I was burning the not quite midnight oil just before midnight. The very last speech of the debate yesterday at 11:56. David Nuttall, the Tory backbencher, gave a 10-word speech, which lasted about 3 seconds.
Can they make it single figures, do we think, today? There's got to be a challenge for that, isn't there? Let's run a sweep on it, Jonathan.
We'll see. The thing is, there was actually, in an earlier debate on European issues about the referendum, the record was set when another Conservative MP called Charles Walker, when debating should we have a referendum, the speech he gave was, if not now, when, and sat down. So 4 words, I think, is the record in modern history for a speech in the House of Commons. I doubt that will be beaten, although certainly in terms of the number of people wanting to speak in this debate, I think brevity is going to be required for them all to get in.
Thank you very much indeed, Jonathan. Isaby there talking to me, Paul Ross, on Talk Radio.